Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mom Mode. I have Emi Naegle on the podcast today, and I feel so honored to have you on the podcast. Absolutely love following everything that you post, your recipes, and just your style. Everything is just so sweet, and I love the recipes. And I'm definitely making these coconut bars she just posted. So if anyone for anyone who doesn't know Emi yet, I'm gonna let her go ahead and introduce herself.
You are so nice. I like don't feel like that introduction is even real. I am Emmy. I'm from Utah. I just started doing Instagram a couple months ago. Honestly, just wanting to share about we'll get into it, but I live with heart failure and it was caused by pregnancy. So I just wanted to spread awareness and advocacy about that. But then also I love to bake and cook and I love to create new outfits and I love to create a cozy home. And so I wanted to really teach people and show people how you can go through some really hard things and educate them about those and then also show how creation has been a way for me to find light and joy, whether that be through creating in the kitchen or um, or in my home or whatever. So just finding joy and light amidst the grief. And I personally, so I'm from Utah. I grew up in lots of big families. I am the oldest of five. I'm the oldest of both sets of grandkids. So in total, probably like 60. And um, that's all I've ever known. I've never even known someone that is an only child, except for one aunt. I think I had one aunt who was an only child from California. But I have had to deal with the fact that my family is going to look a little different than I pictured. My six kids probably will not be that many. So right now it's just me and my husband, and we have a 3-year old, almost 3-year old daughter. And so I just wanted to share about that and what it looks like and how I'm still finding joy in motherhood, even though it looks completely different than I expected or planned. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Is there anything else I missed, Nicole? Anything you
No,
missed you want out of the
no.
introduction?
And like literally, like you are honestly, like I say, like you're a ray of energy and light. And honestly, no, I truly mean that.
Thank you.
Just like everything you post, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love it. I love when I see you pop up. I love following your journey. Um, so yeah, I mean, where do you want to start first? Should we
Yeah.
start with
So everyone wants to know the story of how I was diagnosed with heart failure. So I'll just walk you
yeah,
through
let's just walk through it.
kind of how it happened. And I'm gonna hurry and mute those notifications. So not just my family group text. So nothing fancy. But so I am from Utah. And in my culture, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I wouldn't even say it's religion specific. I think it's more just regional. Um, I was like 24 and ready to start having kids. That's just how it happens. Maybe a little bit younger than the other parts of the country. Uh, my husband and I were high school sweethearts. We say to simplify things. We were on and off since we were like 14, and so we got married at 21. We were 21, and I was working as a public accountant and auditor, a CPA for a big for public accounting firm. And it was a lot. I was working 60, 70-hour weeks, and it was like I learned so much, but it was not without stress. And when in my head, I had this timeline and I was thinking, okay, we'll start having kids when I'm about 25. And so when I was 24, I went off birth control and my period never came. And then after a year, we saw fertility doctors and we tried all the meds and nothing was working and no one could figure out what was going on. Um, Whether it was undiagnosed or it was undiagnosed infertility was what it was. I'm like suspecting maybe PCOS, but atypical PCOS. And I'm researching and trying to figure out how to exercise and what to eat. And I can't even remember all of them because it was such a roller coaster. And it was Clomid and Femera and Letrozole or not Femera, but Letrozole. I can't even remember.
And are those like all different stuff that like the fertility doctor wanted you to try, or
Yeah,
like
so first my OBGYN, and then we went to a fertility specialist, and they were trying to get me to ovulate. And I was doing trigger shots, and infertility is so hard. I just like my heart goes out to anyone. I sometimes feel embarrassed saying like, "Oh, I was going through infertility when I was 25," because I know there's women who are much older and like feel like there's probably a lot more um writing on the table with like our biological timeline and whatever. I don't know why I get embarrassed. Not embarrassed, but I know it seems young to a lot of people, but
but you were still going
it
through
doesn't
it.
it doesn't
It's the
matter
same
like what.
thing.
Yes, and it doesn't matter what age you're going through it. It doesn't matter. I've decided how long you're going through infertility. Every time you want to be pregnant and your period comes, it stinks. Like it doesn't matter if you've been going through it for 8 years or 2 years or 2 months. It's like the worst disappointment. And it was super hard. Super hard to just like want something so bad and feel like you were doing everything and it was affecting me physically and mentally and emotionally. But finally the next step were these IUIs. So you need to do 3 typically you do 3 IUIs before moving on to IVF. And on my third one, I did get pregnant. And it was so exciting. And I was like, all I had ever wanted. I am like your typical, like I said, oldest daughter. There's 12 years between me and my littlest brother. So I helped
Wow.
raise them practically. It feels like it's just in my nature. And I was so just excited. So I finally got pregnant, and I could talk so much about. We could have a whole podcast just about everything I learned through infertility, and
Mm-hmm.
I actually will say what I did learn through infertility truly prepared me for like what was to come. I did a lot of mental work um, surrounding just like life, but when things don't go as we want, or like focusing on my mental health, it's where I really dove into baking and like really just like use that as an outlet to make the most of the situation. And so I really developed my baking and cooking skills and worked on my own mental health, and I'm so grateful I did because down the road I really needed it. But once I got pregnant, things were normal, but I was very sick. Not HG. People always ask me that. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like losing weight and throwing up all day long, but I felt like I had the flu every minute of every day. And I kept waiting. People would tell me, oh, it gets better at 14 weeks. It gets better at 16. Oh, when I was 20 weeks, you'll feel better. And that came and went. And I was in my third trimester and still just miserable. I've I've been through some hard things, and pregnancy itself was so hard. One of the hardest, for sure, the hardest thing I've done physically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I also want anyone hearing this who's pregnant just to feel so validated. It it's worth it. It's wonderful, but it's super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And
It truly
not
is.
to like be negative or anything, because I also don't want to be. I walk this fine line with my story of wanting to educate people and help advocate for maternal care and health, but I never want it to come across as like, here's all the scary things, here's all the horrible things about pregnancy, here's all the terrible things about motherhood, because for every single one, there is like 10 times the joy and beauty and becoming. And, but to validate any pregnant woman, it is so hard. And everything was like textbook except for in my third trimester, I started getting really lightheaded. So I did try and start like going to a workout class with my sister because there was nothing else I could do. I was going to feel sick anyway, so I did have a little more energy to do that in my third trimester. But when I drive home, things didn't feel quite right. A couple of times I saw stars. It was scary because I was driving. And every time I would go in for my checkups, they would always comment on my blood pressure because it was actually low. I know
Interesting.
oftentimes it's being
High.
high is a concern, and
Mm-hmm.
it still is a concern for my condition if it's high, but mine was actually low. And they would ask me like, and my heart rate would also be really low. So they would say like, "Are you a marathon runner?" And I was like, "No, I've never run a marathon, trust me." But I'm like, I ride my Peloton, and so I think they just thought I was like super fit, which is not necessarily the case. But and also I've had a history of like a lower heart rate, and so that kind of got dismissed. The fainting, the lightheadedness, my OBGYN just said, "Oh, like that can happen." I mean, there's lots of physiological changes happening when you're pregnant, and it for sure could be a normal pregnancy symptom. I also gained a lot of weight. Like I will say it was over 80 pounds. Which is
Okay.
like that can also be normal, but it's a
Yeah.
lot also. You like
Yeah.
everybody is different. Um,
Exactly.
but it probably was a little bit excessive. Like I wasn't swelling in my ankles or like extremities. So that was tricky because if I would have been, then they would have been like, "Oh, for sure that's water retention."
Yeah.
But spoiler, I was retaining the fluid like in my abdomen and my chest. Um,
Okay. So were
so
they
I'll
were they
explain more.
finding that out, or like did you have any extra appointments with like what you had going
No,
on? No,
no,
they
no,
were
no.
just
So this
like,
is all just things I'll often get asked, like, what symptoms did you have in your third trimester? These were things that I noticed, but I brought them up. I mean, it's my first one, so you don't know anything. I'm just like, and they were just, I was just told those are all normal pregnancy symptoms, which they can be, but in my case, spoiler, they were not just normal pregnancy symptoms, but
yeah.
um, things just kind of, I went on as normal. I ended up getting induced at like past my due date, 40 weeks, I think, a couple days past my due date. It's not like a great induction. I went a full 24 hours, just like full of Pitocin, and my water had not even broke. So I wasn't dilating, and they almost sent me home. They're like, "You decide if you want to do the balloon, or we can just send you home at this point and call it a failed induction." So my husband and I were trying to figure out what to do, and then my water broke. So then this has been the 24-hour mark, and I hit the 24-hour mark of being like induced, and they're like, "Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well now you're not going home. We have 24 more hours to get the baby here." And so I started me back up on Pitocin, and I dilated to a 4, and they're like, "Okay, every hour after now you should be dilating another centimeter." And I never, from whenever that happened, 9 a.m., I never dilated past a 4 until 10 p.m. And it was pretty miserable with the Pitocin contractions and things. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, at like 10 or 10:30, my doctor just said, and I said, like, "I don't know if this baby is, for whatever reason, it's not coming. Your body's not responding." And so I ended up having a C-section. And I felt okay about it at the time. My whole like birth plan was just to keep both of us safe and
Yeah.
get us both through it safely. I will also say, in hindsight, I was so busy with work. I was working so much leading up to it. It was like my busy season. I didn't have time, and I wish I would have made time to educate myself a little bit better about, not that there's not one right answer, but just learning. It's impossible to know everything, but learning as much as you can about pregnancy, about different labor styles,
Mm-hmm.
about whatever. Just like learning about it gives you the power to make a decision, an educated decision.
Definitely.
And I still fully trust like medical professionals. And even now, like, yeah, my doctor missed some of my symptoms, but I still will take their expertise, but I think it's important to have your own knowledge so that when they say something, you can ask questions about it because
Mm-hmm.
you're at least knowledgeable enough to know to ask questions. Or if they don't say anything, you can say, "Hey, I've heard of this. What do you think?" So, anyway, but my C-section was textbook. Like everything went normal. I felt pretty good after. Everything seemed to be fine. And so I will say, when I was in labor, there was a nurse who noticed that my heart rate, as I was hooked up to all the monitors, there was a couple of nurses that noticed that my heart rate was jumping up and down, and it's something they had never seen. So I would just be laying flat and without moving a muscle, and it was very low. So it would move from like 40 beats per minute to 90 without even like
Oh,
moving.
wow. That's a
And
drastic
so
change.
yeah, so they were just like, something's going on, but it's tricky because not everyone in labor and delivery is a cardiologist. Like, they don't,
For
that's not
sure.
their expertise. So they did suggest that I go see a cardiologist in the next 6 months. They're just like, we've noticed you maybe have um, some like abnormal rhythms going on or something. You should probably go see a cardiologist, I don't know, this year. And so I was told that. So then I'm getting up to leave the hospital. And I also will add, when Nellie, so my daughter's name is Nellie.
That's so
She,
cute.
it was like I mean, I didn't know her name was Nellie until the last second we were getting ready to leave. But when she was born, I was so happy. It was, even with my C-section, even with like it not, it being that way, when they brought her into me,
Mm-hmm.
it still felt like the highest high. Those like days in the hospital nursing her and just being with her, and it felt um I felt so complete and so fulfilled. And not that every moment was perfect. Like, I'm not saying if you don't feel those things then there's something wrong. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
it was like I think having to wait for it too. That is one gift, true gift from infertility, is it makes everything in life. The hard makes like sweet sweeter.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just felt so like this high, so beautiful. So we're getting ready to leave the hospital, and I'm literally get up to pack my bag, and I collapsed, and things start going dark, like stars and then black, and I cannot stand or see, and I'm like, Andrew, like I can't, I'm like, anyway, they put me on oxygen, they hooked me up to a machine, and an EKG machine, and it registered as a mini heart attack, which it wasn't actually a heart attack, but that is how like it's not like I did not have like a clogged artery, or but my heart rhythms were
Mm-hmm.
so abnormal that on the EKG machine it just like it couldn't even tell me what rhythm I was in. It just, my heart was not beating properly. So they told me, you're not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
luckily, I was at a small hospital, which one good thing about that was they let me stay in the maternal like postpartum room,
Mm-hmm.
and they hooked me up to a bunch of machines, and then they could just monitor me from the cardiac ICU, the floor above. So I could stay with my baby. I didn't need to go to the ICU per se, but they monitored me up there for a couple of days, and they did an ultrasound of my heart, and it's called an echocardiogram. And the ultrasound showed that my heart was enlarged and my function was decreased. So a normal heart function, they call it an ejection fraction. It's about 55 to 70% is your normal range. So you'll never have 100% EF. But I started out about 35 when they did that first echo. My function had decreased to 35%. That is like not great. I was obviously symptomatic. But
Had you ever had anything before? Like ever,
no.
like now that this was happening, did you ever look back and say, like when you worked out or just
Yeah,
anything
no,
that,
not no. No, I was like, they don't know what caused it. Um, I think I maybe have had like an irregular heartbeat sometimes throughout my life. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like a new puzzle that we're trying to figure out, but they think that the two are unrelated.
Okay.
So everyone has like skipped beats every so often and a flutter and a racing heart. Like that's all very normal. And I may have had that my whole life and they're getting a lot worse. They're getting a lot more often, but that's like a new thing. And they don't think that it caused, they think they're probably separate.
Okay.
It's not like that heart condition caused PPCM, but if you had a heart defect, like as a child or whatever, that definitely would put you at a higher risk for developing this in pregnancy. But so I was at 35. Um, when you're like below 20, that's when they start considering like devices, and anything like 15-10% function and below, that's when you'd be like immediately put on a heart transplant list. So I started out at like an okay spot, not great. But the thing is at least they caught it at 35, because usually when they catch it, they can at least stop it from going lower. Um, and the lower, like the longer you let your body be in heart failure, the worse your heart function will get. It's just like a snowball. So it gets really dangerous if it goes undiagnosed, because if I would have gone home from the hospital, like it's the biggest blessing that I was in the hospital when it happened,
Yeah.
because if I would have gone home, I don't know if I would have realized what was going on. I think I would have just thought, oh, I'm postpartum. So what happens when you're in heart failure is your lungs eventually start to fill with fluid. So you
Okay.
have a cough and things. I think I would have just thought, oh, I have a cold or pneumonia or whatever. So I'm so thankful they caught it when they did. But I was told there in the hospital by an on-call. It was a weekend. So an on-call cardiologist came in with my OB/GYN to tell me that I was diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy. Um, Cardiomyopathy is just the general term for heart failure, heart weakness. Peripartum, and it can happen for a number of reasons. It can just be, there's different types. Peripartum it used to be called postpartum cardiomyopathy, but now they refer to it as peri, because peri means like before or after. So before or after the partum period. So
Mm-hmm.
before you give birth or after. It usually develops in your third trimester or postpartum, and up to like a year postpartum. Um,
Wow.
so they were told, it's also like, I'll refer to it as PPCM is the abbreviation, but they told me I had PPCM. I honestly wasn't given like a ton of details about it. It was pretty traumatic because and they had to be very like honest in the moment. They didn't know how quickly I was going to recover function. And so um they told me what it was and then left, and I Googled it
Oh my
and
gosh.
was very scared. Google makes it sound, which it can be very serious, but I was like traumatized. So I read that like you can never have any more children. So I asked my doctor when they come back in, like, does this mean? And they said like you cannot have any more children without risking ending up on a heart transplant list, without risking it getting worse. I will caveat that now. So that's what I heard in the moment, and probably for the
Mm-hmm.
first 6 months postpartum, that was all I was told. Now I'm seeing more skilled doctors in this specific condition, and they've told me the door is not closed. It's very individualized in the sense that you have to consider, like, that's the broad recommendation, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to consider every patient, because there's a lot of individualized factors, like what is your family history, what caused yours, how quickly did you regain heart function, what did your heart function start at, um, like those sort of things. So
Okay.
I'm feeling a little more hopeful now, but in the moment, it was like heartbreaking. I went
Oh
from this
yeah.
high to like I'm still in the hospital and told I can have no more children. And we're in shock. And I got on some medication and they released me a couple days later. I wasn't there too long. They were able to stabilize me and they felt comfortable sending me home. But then I saw a cardiologist like a week or two later. And just in that week or two of leaving the hospital before I saw the cardiologist again, uh, things were getting worse. Like we had to start me on more meds once I saw the cardiologist, but that's where I'm saying it can get super scary. So that's when my lungs started filling with fluid. I was just like taking my inhaler, thinking, even knowing I was in heart failure, not realizing that was what was happening, thinking it was my asthma. And so things were even getting worse in that time period. And then I saw my cardiologist, and we had to make like more meds, add more meds, and then talk about, my future as far as building a family, what that was going to look like. But the most immediate issue that we focused on was trying to get my heart back up, and my heart size decreased and my heart stronger. So I had to cut out like sodium, which was super annoying postpartum. Just like I had to be super diligent about my sodium intake. They wanted me to decrease my fluids, which was also really hard because I was still trying to breastfeed. I had to be really careful about exercise, but even if I wanted to exercise, I felt so like weak, and I had to work up really slowly, but it was super important to me because I knew that would strengthen my heart. So when I was cleared to exercise, I tried to make that a priority, but I had to be really intentional about listening to my body. And what else did I have to change? The low sodium really threw me because everything had to be
so
like
hard.
homemade. Like eating out is like practically impossible.
Yeah.
And anything pre-packaged and prepared. So I was like, and when you're postpartum, like you don't have like the time or energy to
be
making
focusing
like
on that.
everything from scratch. So
Yeah.
I was living off of like unsalted almonds and G2G bars, and I can't remember. It was kind of depressing. But anyway, so my daughter was born in May. That summer, I'm going to the hospital every week or two to monitor me. And then by September, I had a repeat ultrasound, and my heart function had gone to 55, which was
that's awesome.
such good
so
news.
35 to 55. So that's what they were monitoring was that number.
It was still enlarged, but because it was because when your heart function is decreased, I should have explained this, then you're not getting enough oxygen to the rest of your organs. It's like how effectively it's pumping like blood to your other organs.
Got it.
So when you're having a decrease of heart function, then like your brain's not getting enough blood, your digestive system's not getting enough, your like everything just is not working on like.
Isn't it crazy how like the body, like you don't think of it so intricately, and then when you have something happen, then you're like, oh my gosh, I never realized the importance of, and I mean, not that you don't think the heart's important, but you're like, you just think everything's going to work the way it's supposed to. Yeah.
Yes. An added layer to this is the woman's body, our hormones play another role. And that's one thing that I still, to this day, have to really advocate for when I'm in these appointments at my cardiologist's office. And I'm like, every single month around my period, my heart gets worse. And they're kind of like, I feel like it's not taken super seriously. I'm like, I promise it has to be connected. But we don't know enough about the way our hormones work. And a cardiologist isn't an expert in the woman's body, but my OBGYN wasn't an expert in my heart, clearly, because, so anyway, it just is super complicated. But so my heart function went back up, and ever since then, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. There's been ups and downs, and it always is bad days. It feels like living with a chronic illness a lot of the time. So my medication has side effects. Sometimes my heart flares up, but overall, I'm doing much better than I was those first year. I think by 18 months postpartum, my heart had gone down to normal size as well. So, I mean, way better than I had to take it very slow that first year. And summer is hard. Even still, like we went out of town this fall to Oklahoma, and it was super hot and humid. And for like 5 days of the trip, I was miserable because my body just could not adjust to the high heat I'm super sensitive to. So it's just been a lot of like trying to figure out
like what makes you flare up,
yes,
what makes you feel the best.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people who have chronic conditions or illnesses can probably relate to that general sentiment. now I've been having more abnormal heart rhythms. So we're trying to figure out, I'm probably going to have a procedure to try and figure those out, but hopefully the door still isn't closed on another pregnancy. It's just super risky.
Yeah.
And my doctor feels confident that I will be okay. And the baby, it doesn't affect the baby. Um, and except for the fact that there is a chance that they would take the baby at like 32 weeks, like they'd be in the NICU or whatever.
Okay.
Um, if I was going back into heart failure, there's also a possibility that if I have another one, they'll admit me to the hospital at 20. What's the week that like a lot of the big changes happen? Like 28 weeks, once your like blood volume like really doubles and things. I
I
might be
think so.
admitted
Would
and
they put
just,
you on like bed rest in the
yeah, pretty
hospital?
much there just to what, like that's complicated in itself if you have a toddler and a spouse who works and things. My husband is also just doesn't want. There's a chance that my heart function goes down and never comes back up, and so that would be really hard to live how I was living
Yeah. So there's
there.
definite
So
risk.
it's definitely like a big decision, and we're trying to learn more about adoption and surrogacy. But for now and lately, especially with my heart being having these abnormal rhythms a lot more often,
Yeah.
they're scary. They have chest pains. You feel crappy. So we have to get that figured out first. So now that's the new priority number one. But anyway, that is
Well, you
like
are
the
definitely
story.
so strong. I mean, for you to be like go through this, obviously young, and then now come on and share your journey and advocate is really special, because I know it's not easy to talk about. I have pregnancy. I mean, I don't have anything compared to what you are going through. But I had some pregnancy issues and I cry about it. And mine are, I mean, I question if I want another baby. And that's really hard to sit with. When you look at I have a daughter that's 16 months old. And she's like, she sees babies and she's like, baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it kills me. But like, I had a rough pregnancy. I ended up with preeclampsia. I'd have a C-section. I was similar to you with, I just was not dilating. I didn't even get to a 1. Um, and it was like 24, 28 hours, something
Yeah.
like that. And I was like, they're like, the baby's great. I'm like, I'm not great. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not even at a 1. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But you are so strong. And I definitely agree with the advocating for your hormones. I have asthma as well. Um, so when you were talking about that, I'm like, it's interesting you say this because I feel like I have flare ups when I'm around my period, or like I just
Yeah.
get like a super racy heart and I just feel like my blood pressure goes up when I'm on my period and it affects my breathing. It's crazy, but
It has to be. I know.
I feel like that's where the combination between what do they call, is it modern medicine and Eastern medicine? What's the
Like
natural?
Western and Eastern, or like a
Yes.
holistic versus, yeah, more
I feel like
modern.
that's where like the holistic and the modern need to come together sometimes
Hmm.
because, both sides, there needs to be something where like they meet in the middle because have you tried going to like a holistic doctor to like look at
Not
hormones?
since my heart per se, but it's on my list for I want to get my hormones like balanced, and I like
It's just something to look at. They
exclamation
do
mark
a
on
lot
that,
of
because I feel like it's a lot of time on social media you see like one or the other, and it's like, I feel like I could be somewhere in the middle, pick and
I
choose a little bit
am.
of everything. When I
Yeah,
was trying to get pregnant, I did go see an acupuncture, whatever, and I tried to really like follow a diet and take a few supplements that were more holistic, but I was still doing the meds and everything else
for
because
sure.
so I am I'm so with that. And even now, like in my motherhood journey, it's been hard. I have friends who it's like, and I could get that way as well if I'm not checking myself. Like it can be scary and stressful. Like, oh, what water bottle do I use for my kids? Am I giving them cancer? Am I? And I'm like,
I know.
I'm gonna have wood cutting boards maybe, but I'm still probably gonna get a Diet Coke and
Yeah, I would say I'm
I,
totally in the middle with
balance
you.
in all things.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely worth going. I mean, maybe they run extensive tests for you. I don't know, but I do know that, with my preeclampsia, I had the preeclampsia and I went to my doctor and I'm like, is there anything I can do, to like not have this again or like what happened? And, I was the extensive researcher where I'm like, is it my weight? Is it my asthma? Do I have a thyroid condition? He's like, no. Well, then I went to a holistic doctor. They ran like 40 blood tests. And sure enough, I have these thyroid antibodies and I have Hashimoto's. Well, they're like, we don't want to diagnose you with Hashimoto's, but you do have, it
You're like,
shows that you have
it could
Hashimoto's.
get, yeah.
And then you look it up and preeclampsia can definitely be caused by Hashimoto's. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. Like, so you do. And I brought it up to my OB and I know him personally. And I'm like, do you know? I'm like, I have these thyroid antibodies. He's like, you do? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, this is why I say like run more tests. So I definitely think being
No,
in
I'm
the,
really excited. That's like, especially since my heart has been flaring up with the thing that they maybe think is not related to
yeah,
PPCM. I'm like, I definitely, and as we get older, like you
bodies
can just tell your
change.
body's not, yeah. So I'm excited. And I definitely think that there is, I mean, the woman's body was excluded from clinical research until like the 70s or the 80s. That's only like 40, like that's not that long
No,
ago.
that is not long
So,
ago. My parents were born before that.
yeah.
So that puts it
So
in
there's
perspective.
definitely like so much more we can learn. And I think it can feel overwhelming as you're trying,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, like diving into the research and doing extensive research.
Yeah.
You can go down rabbit holes. You're trying to figure out what's true, what's not true. It can feel scary. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you're just like, I don't want to know.
Yeah. Sometimes, and then
And
you get like emotional and you're like, okay, I need to like dig out of the hole now because now I'm too deep in.
yes, I mean, we've
Um,
all been there. And that's where I feel like I have to be careful. Like last night or 2 nights ago, my daughter had this rash on her stomach and it looks really weird. It looks like a rash that's like how a rash normally doesn't look. And it's like 8 o'clock. We can't go see the pediatrician until the next day or the day after that. And so it's hard not to like Google it and then be
mm-hmm.
like, okay, she has this kidney infection disease. But I want to also, there's a way to do that. It actually,
Mm-hmm.
so using her as an example, I Google this thing. I find out about this thing called HSP that affects your kidney. It's like an autoimmune disorder. So then when I go to see the pediatrician today, instead of going down that and being like, she has that, she's like, something awful's gonna happen, da 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 da, I can take that information,
Yep.
practice not letting intrusive thought come in, practice not letting intrusive thoughts come in, take that education, and then when I'm at the doctor today, I can be like, hey, have you heard of HSP? And he's like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Can we test her for this? Yeah, let's do it. What could be causing that? So then I can ask more questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's not that? Like what if it was that? What are things I should have been looking for instead? Like that way, the conversation, you feel empowered and confident to ask questions. And if you really do think it's that, you know what testing to ask for and whatnot. So as I'm sharing like awareness online about PPCM specifically and
Yep.
pregnancy, maternal health in general, I never want it to feel scary, like a fear mongering or clickbaity, but more so that you can feel empowered um, in an easy, digestible way. Because I know we're all busy. We don't like we might not have hours and hours to try and sort it all out online. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to like save the information and then know what to ask your doctor. Like, hey, I saw that multiple, like say I'm having twins. You could be
Yeah.
like, I know I'm having twins. I know that that is a risk factor for PPCM. What do you think? Is there any testing we can do to rule it out?
Yeah. To get
Um,
ahead of it instead of it.
yes, because that's why I am spreading advocacy about PPCM
Mm-hmm.
specifically, is catching it early, like makes the world of a difference. Like cuts down on mortality rates like crazy. Um,
Could
and
they have caught
so
it earlier with you, do you think?
I think we could have caught it in my third trimester for sure. And I think we would have done things differently. They wouldn't have I maybe still would have had a C-section, but I wouldn't have been on Pitocin and fluids for 38 hours,
And at 40
laboring,
weeks.
causing more strain on my heart.
Yeah.
If we would have caught my heart function at 50 or 45, it's a little bit better than 35. So I think we could have caught mine earlier. I think there's a lot of women that you can catch theirs earlier, and there's just, and I don't want this to be dark, but there's a lot of stories of for lots of different reasons. But there was just a girl in Utah who passed away from PPCM just after Christmas. And
I think I saw that on the news, right? Did she have
yeah,
twins?
yeah. And I've spoken with her sister-in-law, and they're wonderful people, but that's why I feel so called to share things like that happening, because um if she would have, like, they didn't know about it. They had no clue. It wasn't even on their radar. But if it's on your radar, you can at least go in to the hospital earlier or call your doctor, or and it's not their fault. I'm just saying we need to do a better job about educating women about what's happening to their bodies. And PPCM specifically happens 1 in every 1,000 births. That's not that, I mean, it's always referred to as like rare. That's not that rare. And I can
No.
like prove to you with like hundreds and thousands of comments and messages of women who have been through the same thing, or who are like, because it could resolve on its own, and then you have a second pregnancy and things get way worse. So I've had lots of women being like, I think I had that. But anyway, so that is where I'm at now, just trying to share. And it's not fun to just talk about being in heart failure every single day. I will always be considered in a heart failure. I will see the doctor every year for the rest of my life. I'll probably be on meds for the rest of my life. And that can feel scary, and it is a roller coaster, but talking about that all day, every day is no fun. So it's been really fun to be able to also share about how to live and find joy in motherhood when you're dealing with grief and physical challenges. And so, anyway, it's not my whole story, but I felt very called to share. I don't know if you have any questions.
No, I mean, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted, you were telling it beautifully and like walking us all through it. I mean, one thing I will say is like, you have a beautiful daughter. So, I mean, when you really think about it, I know it's so hard to sit with like, maybe you won't have six, but maybe you will, maybe you'll adopt, or like you said, surrogacy. Like it's so funny you say all this, because I'm like, who knows? Like maybe that's part of my journey too. I don't know yet. But I'm not going to say I haven't sat with my husband and been like, hey, maybe we need to do this. And so I think it's beautiful to share, because I think there's a lot more women going through it for different reasons, and like similar thought processes, and, health scares, and, chronic conditions after pregnancy, that it might not be exactly like yours, but it's a place where they can come and they can see how you're dealing with it. And it's an inspiration. And so, but the fact that you have one, like you're like, I look at my daughter and I'm like, at least I have one. Like I always wanted three. And I'm like, I might not get two, I might not get three, but at least I have one. And I look at her and I'm like, at least that, like, I did it, like, no matter what. And I'm here and I'm living this life with her. Do you feel that, how was it that the first year, in her life, like, do you feel that you had,
So actually, that's so funny you asked that, because while you were talking, I kept thinking, like, I forgot to mention this, because a huge part of my story, I feel my personal story, is in a lot of ways, it was like a gift. Honestly, like, it's something like being diagnosed with heart failure caused by pregnancy, 3 days postpartum being told you can never have any more kids. That is actually, in some ways, an experience I wish I could give every mom, because of all the work I think I had put in. That's why it's so important to make sure you are healthy yourself, like mentally and emotionally. I was able to take that information and it sucked me into the present moment. Like it took away all the noise.
Mm-hmm.
And that first, like her whole life feels so, the past 3 years have felt so special. Not that other people's experiences aren't special. I'm not saying that. But for me, it allowed me to really just focus in on every moment and enjoy it the best you can. I always add that
Mm-hmm.
caveat. I'm not saying enjoy every moment, but enjoy the good moments
Yep.
the very best you can. Um, because I knew that they were all going to pass and that was out of my hands. And it made every moment so much more fun. And it took like my body off the table as far as I was not stressed about losing the weight. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I had decades of time to lose the baby weight. So that took like that natural, I know we all do it. That took that off the table. Not that I have like bad, I still have bad body image days, but that pressure was off. Trying to figure out like the perfect age gap. I knew that was off the table. So I wasn't constantly thinking about like, okay, when am I going to get pregnant again? How far are the
Mm-hmm.
baby's going to be apart? Like that was
And that's
gone.
a
I was
stress.
really,
That's a stressor within
yeah. So I
itself.
really was just like, I've been able to like soak in every moment I can for her. I know there's time down the road when she'll go to school. I end up, and I'm not saying this is right for everyone, but I tried going back to work and I just physically wasn't feeling well enough to do it. And then also I was just like, she's going to go to kindergarten in 5 years and I'm going to have more time. So I truly believe that even despite everything I went through, it gave me like the most beautiful gift of being present with her and just living it up the best I could.
Mm-hmm. And like,
But
I don't know, daughters are so special. I don't have a son, but I look at my
me
daughter
neither.
and I just am like, you can bake with them. And like, does she join you when you like when
Oh,
you bake, when you cook?
she thinks she can bake on her own now. It's like I bake with her all the time. And I still would do that over and over again. But lately she's almost 3 and I'm like, should have thought that one through because now we're trying to make cookies and before I know it, she's turned around and turned on the mixer because she just knows how to do it
They're
because we've just been
literally,
doing it since she was a baby.
they're so
And it's not
capable at
always
3.
the cleanest. There's usually flour and things, but oh yeah, we do everything together. She's like my little best friend. And motherhood for me, so when I first started sharing about it, it's a big long story. I started a TikTok just over a year ago
Okay.
because I was trying to okay, on Amazon, when you buy something, there's like little videos at the bottom. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, here's this phone case. It's 2 inches by 5 inches. So those are called like on-site Amazon reviews. And I knew that I needed I quit my job, but I needed
Mm-hmm.
some way to pay for my medical expenses because every year they're more than I would like. A few $1,000s, $6,000 or $7,000 every year is what I kind of have to plan on for
Yeah.
my tests and my appointments. So I knew I needed to figure out a way to pay for them. So I started doing Amazon reviews, but I wasn't like, I didn't have a social media account. Like I had my private account, but nothing public. And so, in order to be accepted into this program, because then if someone clicks on that video and they buy the phone case, you get like 2% of it. So I was trying to
Okay.
get accepted into this influencer program without actually being an influencer. So I needed to start a TikTok to get accepted so that I could leave the Amazon reviews. Sorry, this is kind of, but it all
No.
explains.
I
So
mean, you're like a you're like a hustler. Like you're doing your
well,
thing.
I don't know about that. It's like the Amazon review
I
course
love
is the
this.
only course I've ever bought. Me and my sister split it and we're like, what are we doing buying a course? But it all worked out. So this lady taught us to make a TikTok account so that you could get accepted into the program. So I got a TikTok account. I posted for 2 weeks, got accepted to Amazon. And our plan, me and my sister, was then just to like you don't have to keep doing social media. So we were just going to let the TikTok accounts die.
Yeah.
And I, though, had started sharing about my heart. I started sharing low sodium recipes. That was like going to be my thing. That's a pretty
Which I
small group of
love.
people.
because
Yeah,
I
but I
need
feel
low
like there's probably a
sodium.
pretty small group of people that are interested in them. But the more I was sharing about the low sodium recipes, I was like connecting with people that have different heart things. So then I started sharing about PPCM, and that's when like the messages came flooding in, and that's where I was finally to a point. I was 18 months postpartum by this point. I was like, like I feel good enough. Like I had the mental energy to do something else besides just focus on my health and
Yeah.
getting better. And so I started sharing about my heart. My TikTok account never really took off. I had some videos that did really well, that really helped spread awareness about PPCM. And so I felt called to keep doing that. The TikTok account, I'm still at like 3,800 followers, but I have this great little like tight group of friends there, and it kind of evolved over the past year. But then in November, I was like, I'm going to get brave and do Instagram. And it's truly been like the biggest blessing.
Yeah. I think around then, I mean, like December, I started seeing videos that you
Yeah, I
had,
just
I
started in
think.
November.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, Instagram, TikTok is like, I feel like just such a niche community too. Like, I don't even have a
Yeah.
TikTok. So I feel like Instagram is just like a wider array of like people that are
Yeah.
on there.
And
So
it's what I'm more used to. It's like the
same.
content I've consumed for a decade.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun to be able to just connect with more women and to learn from each other. But I
Yeah.
can't remember where I was starting with that story, why I told you the whole story.
What were
Um,
we talking about? You were
I'm so
talking
sorry.
about the TikTok.
Yeah, it was before that. That's why I dove
We were
into the
talking about
TikTok.
your daughter.
Yeah.
And then
Motherhood.
the Amazon reviews.
Yeah, I can't remember. I had a connection in my. What question did you ask me? Oh my gosh. It's been a week, as you could tell,
No
from
worries.
just like our past 48 hours.
Well, and
Oh,
I just
geez.
had
I'm
I
sorry.
had another
I totally
question.
lost. I was answering a question
No,
for
you're
you, and I
good.
feel like I had to explain all that to get to my point. And now I can't even remember.
We were talking about like how you enjoyed motherhood and then it became a blessing
Yeah.
and then how she cooks with you and bakes with you. I'm trying to see if anything.
Triggers.
Yeah.
This has never happened to me on the podcast interview.
No, you're good.
Uh,
Well, let's see. How about this? Starting the Instagram. I mean, you have this TikTok account. When starting Instagram, I mean, do you feel that it's like
mhm.
healing you at all? Do you feel that it's kind of making you more emotional talking about it more and having other women reach out to you with similar stories? Is it like a mix?
That's a good question. It's a mix. I would say it definitely brings back memory. I think when you go through something hard, there's a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to just like lock it down.
Yeah.
But talking about it is therapeutic for me, and sharing it so that it like what's the point of going through this life
Mm-hmm.
to not one find joy amidst the hard, and also to help others and love others and serve others. And so if I'm going to go through something, if sharing about it helps even one person, then I'm learning constantly from people in my personal life and
Mm-hmm.
online. And so I don't feel like it's hard. It's complicated to talk about. I mean, I'll always get like I don't know if I'll ever talk about online in detail. Um just because you can't explain it all in an Instagram caption. And I never want my daughter to feel like unwanted, but it's a complex thing to talk about, like wanting more children, but then also being grateful for the one that you have. And like people will always
Mm-hmm.
say, like, if I talk about like how it's hard to be told you might not carry any more children, someone's always gonna be like, well, you can adopt. And I'm like, I know I'm not saying that adoption's not beautiful. And I do actually want to adopt. I'm just saying being done carrying your own children, that is something to grieve. Like that
It's
gets
hard to
complicated to talk
accept.
about on the
Oh, yeah.
internet. Um, or something that I am trying to figure out is like, what are the dynamics of a family that has a child that you gave birth to and a child that's adopted? Like, how does that work. I don't know, but I'm grateful for the people who share about that because I'm trying to search for answers.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to share those type of things, but truly I'm an open book. Like I just want my account to feel like you're just like sitting at my kitchen counter, not even my kitchen table, less formal than that, just at my kitchen counter, and I will tell you everything I would tell my little sisters when they show up on a bad day, um, or a good day, or when they're looking for a new pair of jeans or whatever it may be.
Has it been really helpful having a large family with siblings to support you through this?
Oh, yeah, my family's been like the biggest support, specifically like my mom and my dad and my brothers and sisters, and then like my aunts and uncles. I have a really good support system, and it doesn't have to be your given family.
Yeah.
I've learned that. You can find friends and like whoever it may be. Finding people and then being that for other people. It's hard for me sometimes when you have like a chronic illness to not be able to show up in all the ways you want to show up for, but showing up in the important ways. Like there were people who didn't just say like, "Oh, let me know how you need help." It was people who just said like, "Hey, I'm making you dinner. Like, does Monday or Tuesday work better?" Or like not like, "Oh, which obviously sometimes you can't do this, but like instead of like my best friend sending a text that said like, "Hey, I wish I could give you a hug," she just like showed up on my driveway on her lunch break and was like, "I need to give you a hug." Just like those little things can make a big difference in someone's life. And so I've had that for sure for me, and I try and reciprocate it. But yeah.
Well, how did you, like you said that you worked on like becoming mentally strong? Like what
Uh,
tools really helped you with that? Like while you were, going through the infertility
yeah.
that led you to going through this to now? Because obviously there's hard days, but there's so much that, like I said, that you share, and it's so positive and so they're filled with love and energy. And so what helped you learn those tools and like
Yeah.
navigate that?
It definitely is not just one thing. And there's no one right answer, but for me, it was again like a balanced approach. So therapy for sure helped. Um, Even before my infertility, I struggled with an eating disorder, and I haven't talked about that a ton online, but I would talk about it for sure because that like therapy there really really helped, and then even some therapy in my infertility, and those gave me skills, learning how to like wire some like pathways in my brain, how to like learning tangible skills, how to deal with intrusive thoughts. So I picture them like I was doing this during infertility, and it's helped a lot postpartum because with my condition, there's been like lots of nights that I'm like scared to go to bed because if I like, what's gonna happen? Like terrible things, right? So for me, I I think I actually read about this in a book, but they picture an intrusive thought like someone um, knocking, like a solicitor knocking on your door. You can like be like, "Hey, I hear the knocking. It's there, but I don't have to open the door. I can just let them. I know it's there. I'm not
Right.
pretending it's not, but then I can just let them move on, and they don't have to come into my home." And so that's just an example of like a skill that I would have to, it sounds funny thinking of it as a skill, but like those like
Yeah.
thought patterns are actual things that we can practice just like we would practice soccer. Um, Also, I would be like remiss if I didn't mention my faith. It's huge for me as far as how I you know get through it. So finding something to believe in. I don't care what it is, but finding something that feels peaceful to believe in, that empowers you. For me, my faith was not just knowing that everything was going to be okay. Like I had that faith and that hope, but more so like in the moment, I believe that I had access to like divine strength and like this enabling power that allowed me to keep moving forward. And
Mhm.
for me, that's Jesus Christ. I feel like his grace and his power allowed me to keep moving forward, but it might look different for someone else. But finding some higher being to believe in, uh, along with, so again, it's like this spirituality aspect with like modern therapy and
Yep.
those skills together is really what I do every day now still. And
Yeah.
I will also add creating, like creating something. So it was just like doing something other than just like sitting. And
Yep.
there's always times, trust me, for rest. But
Yep.
like like our souls are meant to create something new that wasn't there before. That's like I think why motherhood to me feels so special is like you're building like this beautiful life and not just like you're letting this new person into it. I mean, you obviously helped to
Mhm.
create them, but now they're into it.
Yeah.
You can't make every decision for them, but you get to create this childhood that they get to experience, and you get to create a home that feels like you, that a cozy, like whether it's just putting pictures on your wall, or maybe it is doing a craft, or maybe it is baking a recipe. But that's another thing that was huge for me in my eating disorder and infertility, and now finding hobbies, um,
Mhm.
being a gatherer, or doing things on your own. Um, anyway, that's one other thing I would add. I think those three together have been the biggest.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I can see that and I see that in your Instagram videos, like a mix of it all.
Yeah. They say to
Okay.
take a niche or a niche, but I'm not very good at that. So,
No, I love what you're posting. Like I literally do. I mean, I love the recipes. I mean, I love it all, but like I'm a big like I always love
I love
seeing
the
recipes.
recipes too.
And your recipes are like from your is it your grandmother?
Yeah, a couple. I've posted two different, three.
Yeah.
I've had three
I've
grandmas that I posted their recipes. But yeah, like that also, I feel helps us, like connecting to the people we came before us. I also
yeah.
believe like teaching my daughter about these women who were so strong that came before her. I think there is a lot of power in um, weaving that into
Yeah,
motherhood
that's
and
her
raising
roots.
children. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's like
That's beautiful.
I need to find it, but there's an actual like Harvard like publication that's like proven by science that children who know about their families and the
Yep.
stories and the hard things that the people in their families have gone through, they're like proven to be more successful and happier kids and
Well, and I
then
just think
adults into
it's a
adulthood.
beautiful thing to know your family history. Like
Yeah.
there's so many people that like my family, I'm in Chicago and I don't know if it's because like my family's Italian, Polish, German and like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, like my grandmother came over on a boat from to New York and then came to Chicago and like just the history of like, immigrants that came from like Europe or like the European descent. And like, there's so many people that I talk to that they don't know where their families have come from or they don't know these recipes. And I think it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I think it's like, that's a part of who I am. And like,
Yeah.
it's so special that now I'm going to eventually share that with my daughter.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
fun.
so, and like, that's a part of when you really think about it, like, it's a part of my confidence because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I have this strength. I have this family. Like this was like to me, it's so special to have like hand me downs from my grandparents. Like I have my grandparents. They have by their fireplace they had like this brass thing that held like their firewood, and I have it now. And I'm like, it's so special because
So
as a little
cool.
girl, I would see that by the fireplace, and so it's like I have a piece of my childhood in my home now, and like these recipes. I mean, recipes are a big deal. And like back then, I don't know. I just feel that there was so much more creativity from like our ancestors than now. Like, they were very original, not that there's not
Yeah.
creativity now, but I don't know. There's something very special. And so like, I don't know, like I would more likely make coconut bars that are from your family than just going online and looking up coconut bar recipe,
Right.
because I'm like, it's
Yeah, for
special.
sure. No, it's
Um,
so fun. I love baking and cooking. And one day I would like love to have a cookbook, but with a 2.5-year-old, I can't be a food blogger every day or else it would be
you never
impossible.
know. You never know. If you put that out
That's
there in the
true.
universe, I'm a
That's
big
true.
manifestation,
Oh, me
like
too.
putting it out there and like you said with
For
God, like
sure.
I mean if you want that door to open, that door can definitely open.
Yeah.
And like have your daughter just join you with it,
Yeah.
um recipes that like you and your daughter can make, like you can
That'd
do
be
something
so
fun
fun.
like that, like
Yeah.
like a little baking book or a cookbook that you do with your
That's so
children.
cute. I love that idea.
Yeah. So as far as advice for women that are going through any chronic condition, like what
Hmm.
advice would you give to them based on what you've been through the past few years?
Yeah. Um, Obviously, don't give up. That's the very most cliche thing. I just have to put that up out there. Is like, do not don't give up on your dreams or you or. But from like a more tangible, practical standpoint, my biggest advice would be, it's kind of broad, but to advocate for yourself. I have a video that lists 10 questions to ask a provider. Um, so just like always be learning, always be asking questions. If you don't feel good, don't just not feel good. You can always be trying something new, or I come from like a family who are really good problem solvers. My grandpa is like this, and then my mom is like this. It's like you don't have to just take no for an answer. Like we can figure it out, and don't give up on that. But then on the other side, like there's a lot of peace in so that's how I live. And then I also accept where I'm at right now and what's happened, and that kind of surrendering and just trying to be in the present moment at the same time and enjoying what's right in front of me. Um, and then knowing it's just, I'm not perfect at this, but uh, there's like an analogy called the spoon theory. So it's especially, I mean, it applies to all of us, especially someone that may be living with a chronic illness. Say you start the day and you have 12 spoons. Every single thing you do takes a spoon away, like in the game of spoons or whatever. So, like, getting out of bed might take a spoon. Um, Getting everyone breakfast made might take a spoon. Doing your work for the day might take it. And some days I wake up and I'm physically, because of symptoms or side effects, I only have 4 spoons that day. So you have to figure out who gets those. There are things you're going to have to say no to. There's people you might have to say no to because they take too much energy, negative space, or whatever. And just trying to figure out how to prioritize,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not that's hard sometimes, right? But then also being creative and figuring out ways around it. Like, okay, if I'm stuck on my couch today because I physically don't feel good, what are things that me and my daughter can do on my couch? We can't go to the museum, but maybe we can play doctor. And all I have to do is lay on this couch, and she's gonna have the best day playing doctor. And so she probably had more fun doing that than we were at the museum. So
You're probably not wrong.
so
They just want your
anyway,
love and
that's just like a
attention.
few ideas
Yeah.
and
What is
advice
that
I would
spoon?
give.
What is it called? Do you know, like, is there a name for that spoon?
The spoon theory. I
The
think I saw
spoon
it on
theory.
TikTok.
I actually love that though. Like
Yeah. I
it
think
does apply
if
to all
you
of us,
Google that,
especially
you will
moms.
find lots. Yeah, Google the spoon theory, and there's people who probably explain it way better than me. But, and of course, the number one advice I would give is just like, um, don't give up, and like you are worthy of so much. Like I think similar things I would tell someone who struggles with mental health. Um, so same thing I would tell to like any of my sisters. Like you are so loved, even if things are not going to plan. Something is working in your favor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to make sense in the end. It's still super unfair. Life, I'm not saying God did this to you. Some things just happen and it's just part of life and it's just unfair, but in the end you'll see how it worked. And sometimes we're in the middle of it and it's impossible to see that, but if you don't give up and you keep searching for light, then eventually you'll find it.
I hear that to like my core. Um, to be honest, like one of the reasons why I started the podcast was because of how my pregnancy went. Um, and so, you know, and now I get to talk to all these amazing moms and women that every conversation that I have, I remember so many things that, you know, are being told to me and that I'm learning. And I go and I share them now. You know, there's things from our conversation right now that I'm going to go and I'm going to be sharing, you know, not only on the podcast, but like your words will talk through me to somebody for some
Yeah.
reason, you know, and it's a beautiful thing. And so I definitely feel that. And I
Well,
think that's
thank you
beautiful
for letting me
advice.
share, and thank you for doing this podcast because yeah, we're all in it together,
We really are.
and we're all learning
And
from each other and helping one another through it.
yeah. And my biggest thing is, you know, like I said, I mean, when you had mentioned that you wanted to share, I'm like, I got to reach out to Emmy and I wanted you to have a place where you could share because I know you had mentioned that you were getting a lot of questions, a lot of the same questions, and people wanted to hear your story. And so I'm sure it's never easy, but I so appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing and coming on the podcast. And
Oh, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share. And if there's questions people have specifically related to PPCM that we didn't cover, I have a heart failure bubble on Instagram. And so there has really easy, like bullet point list of signs and symptoms and frequently asked questions that might be, but this is the whole story and
yeah,
it's way more fun to tell um, than just all the
little
medical stuff.
clips. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, and just I mean, it's a part of your story. It's not all of you. There's so much more to you than just that piece. You know, it might have transitioned the way that you live and the way that you think, but that doesn't mean that like you can't live your life in a beautiful way. And you are.
Well, thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you again.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I cannot wait to continue to follow and whoever's listening and not following Emmy, please go follow. I will be tagging her
You're so
and
sweet. You're
you
so
could see
sweet.
all of her fashionista. I mean, your hair, your makeup, your glasses. I love it all. And then your
Oh,
recipes.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.